Welcome to the Business Spotlight. I'm Garry Crosby. I'm delighted to be joined today by Manash Chatterjee. He is the co-founder and CEO of Viridian Seeds. I'm not going to tell you any more about the company because I want Manash to do that. First of all, Manash, let me just say thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Garry, for reaching out to me and for this interview. So Viridian Seeds is a startup which was set up last year in UK. And our mission is to make agriculture and food production sustainable. And the reason we are doing it is because, as you know, the climate change is affecting everyone and every place. We have to produce double the amount of food going forward from the same piece of land under climate change, under less water, under high heat. This is a huge challenge which is happening right now. And we have 7 years to actually maintain these planetary boundaries. So the clock is ticking. And one way we are addressing that is by creating new varieties of plants that will be more efficient, and they will be producing, higher amounts of food grains to feed the population going forward, and at the same time improving the soil fertility, soil regeneration. And the best crop to do such work is legumes, and that's why we're focusing on these protein crops. So in the plant kingdom, the best source of plant-based products or plant-based protein is actually legumes or protein crops.
So you mentioned 7 years. Where does that come from, and what happens if we don't solve the problem in 7 years?
So 7 years, what I meant was that we have this Paris Agreement signed, where every country has pledged to maintain the planetary boundaries of keeping the temperature less than 2 degrees or within 1.5 degrees centigrade. And if you're unable to achieve that, then there'll be disaster, looming, in the sense that high temperature, floods, erratic weathers, severe reduction in crop production. It will affect every aspect of our life, and we are already seeing that, storms and fires and erratic rains during harvesting period, which reduce the food grain production, damages crops, and so on.
And you say the challenge is sustainability of food production systems. What are the main challenges there? We're just not using the land correctly. We're not producing enough yield. What's the key challenge?
Yeah. So what has happened is, we humans, we have been kind of damaging the planet. And so, for example, there is still lack of sustainable farming method being employed. We have been talking about it, but we have been carrying out business as usual, and which is, affecting the land. Land is degraded quite heavily. Then on the top of that, there is a severe issue, or there's a severe risk of actually food and nutritional security, especially in developing countries. And so climate change has to be mitigated by some means so that these countries don't suffer. For example, Bangladesh will be underwater by 2050 if it is temperature not maintained. Then the third is the breeding of crop varieties. Technologies are there. So GM came up with a bank, but GM technology has not delivered because it's a difficult technology, and plus very expensive in the hands of few big multinationals, and plus consumers don't want it. So we have to have a method of kind of friendlier and matches with the traditional breeding method, which is there, but still the producing a variety takes 5 to 10 years. And one of the things we are doing in Viridian is to develop a method which can speed up this variety creation. And the other problem is that consumers, as you know, especially England is, UK is leading in this, is that consumers are already switching to plant-based products. They're looking for plant-based products. And what has happened is, in the last couple of years, we have got these products which are plant-based meat products. So they taste like meat. So they are not so green. If you compare them with beef, they are greener. But if you really compare them with the plant-based burger compared to plant-based meat burger, they use a lot of energy. They are still using GM soya from Brazil, which is causing deforestation and so on. So they're not really greener. And so all this, has to stop, and we have to have a more sustainable way of farming methods for producing more food.
Mm. And I don't know the statistics on this, but I hear that farmers are being subsidized to set land aside or to use land for different things. How does that square with the idea that we're not producing enough food for ourselves in the country?
So actually, I feel that keeping land aside is not a bad idea, especially in the sense that we are losing a lot of biodiversity.
Mm-hmm.
So biodiversity is also a key important point to have sustainable farming methods employed. But at the same time, um, places like the peat bogs and things, they have to be maintained because they store huge amounts of carbon. So I think it's a good approach to keep to preserve the environments where we have CO2 trapped and stored in the soil and so on.
And you mentioned the super legume. Tell us a bit more about that. How does that address this sustainability challenge that you've outlined?
Right. So what has happened is, so consumers are switching to plant-based products, especially they want sustainable source of plant-based proteins.
Mm-hmm.
The only crop which has, protein in them are legumes. So these are like chickpeas, beans, lentils, and so on. And what has happened is, especially in Europe, the breeding of these were stopped in the 50s. So we do have, vegetable peas and some other legumes. Faba bean, for example, UK is growing, but most of the legumes, so GM soya is coming from Brazil to feed the animals.
Right.
And Europeans, basically, they consume animals to get their proteins. Now, because of and the factory farming is one of the biggest cause of greenhouse gas emission. We have methane and other gases, and so this has to stop. And one way is that you switch to a plant-based product, and legumes can play a significant role here to help achieve that goal in the sense that they contain protein, they fix nitrogen, so. Using less fertilizer, especially nitrogen fertilizer, can reduce significantly greenhouse gas emission.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, legumes improve soil. So they are known to improve soil fertility. They regenerate soils, biodiversity, and all that. So exactly what we need to have a sustainable agriculture. So the idea here is that you get your protein sources from legumes or protein crops. But currently they have only 25 to 30%. Soybean is the only one which has 40% protein. The other crop next to soybean is lupin. Lupin is not consumed because it has these anti-nutritional properties. But with technology, I think we can replace, perhaps one day we can replace soybean with lupin, but we need to do research on that. And so this is where our company is taking an approach where we would like to apply high throughput computational breeding technology to create varieties which will have high protein content, climate smart legumes, and that's what we are calling them, super legumes.
Climate smart legumes. I like that. And what kind of timescale are we talking about then? These things are obviously going to take time to develop. When do you think we'd start to see products from Viridian Seeds, in the marketplace?
Yeah. So our pipeline currently is basically the first product should come out, I think, after 3 years. But the subsequent products should take half the time because we have developed this, we call it creative discovery pipeline, where we are actually helping genes evolve faster and kind of mimicking nature. And it's completely non-GMO because we are not adding anything extra from outside inside the plant. And so we have this method where we look at, we use a chemical which actually changes all the genes in a seed. Every seed is unique. We then grow these seeds. We collect seeds for each plant, create a box, like a box of chocolate. We're taking small amount of seeds. We are sequencing them. And then software guides us and tells us, what are the seeds which are carrying beneficial mutations or variants which are going to become commercial products. So the process is very fast. We can look at all the genes controlling different traits very fast. So the first product should come out in 3 years, but subsequent one should take half the time. So reducing time to market.
And you think consumers, you mentioned earlier on that consumers have been a little bit kind of wary of GM foods. There was quite a lot of press around that, a long time ago, as I recall it. You see people being a little bit keener to experiment with things like lab-grown meat or plant-based protein. What do consumers need to do to push this along?
So, so for me, my personal view is that, GM crops are not a bad option in the sense that, they are, I feel, more safer than non-GM foods because they go through a clinical trial process and so on. They have to be tested, fed to animals and so on, like traditional breeding methods. So we have, and I think it has been done for making sure there's a new technology, and any new technology, when it comes, people are skeptical. Regulatory bodies want to be sure that they are safer for consumption and so on. But GM has not delivered in terms of, like we do not have varieties which have, had a huge impact. And then consumers have also realized that these traits are, actually belong to in the hands of few multinationals. And what they have done is basically they have tried to convert the farming methods in all around the world to be very standard type. So, you grow these seeds, then you also spray, chemicals, you also then apply fertilizers, and this is so consumers don't like that. They would like to have diversity in the farming system because they're realizing that these standard methods of food production in large quantities have damaged the environment. So now we have these methods which are non-GMOs. For example, gene editing is a new technology which UK has just approved in the regulatory bill, and it's a huge potential. But this technology actually needs improvement. It's not working in many crops. It looks fantastic when we read it that, we can do this, we can do that, but it's only currently working in a handful of crops, and it's still a GM in Europe because of the regulation, the way it has been set up. Non-GM in UK, non-GM in India, non-GM in US. But the technology is quite new. It's, I believe, 2013. And it needs improvement so that we can apply it to many crops so that we can create good products, and hopefully, it can contribute to sustainability and green agriculture food production.
So I've just got to explore this one thing there, because obviously as a layman, I'm not a scientist. I'm thinking that it's genetically modified, and you're saying it's a non-GM crop in the UK and the US and India, but you are editing and therefore modifying the gene. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah. So let me explain. I'll explain to you. So the way I explain to people is this: that you have a tomato plants. We have sequenced them. The genes are in the public databases. It has 40,000 genes. Okay. You take a gene from another bacteria, you add in this tomato plant, and let's say you increase the shelf life of this tomato, or disease resistant. Now you sequence a product. It has 40,000 tomato genes and one extra gene from another species, which shouldn't be there naturally.
Right.
So this is considered GM.
Right.
Because you've added something from outside. If you look at gene editing, you are adding this gene editing, like we call it, let's say, the sauce, gene editing sauce in the plant. It precisely goes and changes the DNA where you want it to change so that the performance of the plants becomes better. But afterward, this sauce is removed and the product doesn't have the GM sauce, if you like, the DNA from outside. So if you sequence this tomato plant, it will have 40,000 tomato genes only. There's nothing from outside.
Nothing from outside.
This is considered non-GM in the US, the product-based.
Got it.
In Europe, the regulation is if you add anything, even this sauce from outside, which does the job, and you remove it, it doesn't matter. It's the process which defines whether it's GM or not. I have explained to you.
You have perfectly, and I think the public will form their own view, won't they, about whether or not they feel that that's food that they're happy to consume, and that'll be the big test. Now let's talk about your journey, your personal journey as a startup entrepreneur. Tell me about the challenges you faced over the last few years setting up Viridian Seeds and getting everything working.
Okay, so I'm a plant scientist by training, and I have been working for a company called Group Limagrain, a
Mhm.
Cambridge unit for 10 years. And I was working on GM crops at that time. This is 2005. But as you know, GM consumers don't want GM, so Limagrain decided to shut this company. So this new method which we have developed is a non-GM method. So I spun out a company in 2007 earlier, and this company was in India, but Cambridge is my home. I have been here for 30 years.
Mhm.
And the idea was to test whether this technology works or not. And so the technology worked beautifully and everything was going fine. And then COVID happened and my family is here. So I was difficult to travel to India and all that. So I decided to wrap that up and basically set up Viridian Seeds in 2022.
Mm.
But now what has happened is the previous technology was very like a cottage industry, if you like. So, only 5 genes, 10 genes I can look at. But now with the help of Illumina machines, I am looking at all the genes in the plant in
Wow.
one experiment very fast.
Mhm.
And so we are part of Illumina Accelerator. We got selected, one of the first company in agri-tech from Europe to be selected because Illumina is a top class genomics company making sequencing machines,
Mhm.
but they are also helping sustainable companies who are focusing on sustainability and reducing greenhouse gas emission and so on. So we are part of that. And so the challenges I have faced is that Cambridge, one of the challenges I face is one is capital. Very difficult to get capital. So, for example, I'm trying to raise £2 million,
Mhm.
and it has been very difficult to raise in one shot this amount of money.
Sure.
Even in the previous company, I was looking for £1 million, and I was able to raise that from an Indian investor. And one of his conditions was set this company up in India.
Right.
So what also happened is with the Illuminax here, I find that Cambridge is the hub of innovation. There's a lot of this ecosystem. We are part of Cambridge University Accelerator program. They're also helping us, connecting us to investors, guiding us, coaching us, and so on. We are part of Illumina Accelerator. I'm currently in the Cambridge lab of Illumina, and we are developing these pipelines here with them. So I will finish my so the Illumina gives 6 months of lab space. I am finishing it by end of this month.
Mhm.
After that, I'm looking for lab space. So we are exploring. It's pretty expensive here to have a startup, and all that.
Yes. Yeah.
But we are trying to establish collaboration with NIAB. They have this Barn 4, which is an incubation space.
Mhm.
So we're exploring that. So yeah, lab space is a big problem. Getting capital is a big problem. And especially in agri-tech, what I find is that it's capital intensive.
Mm.
And we have only one season here. So growing
Yes.
crops in the glass house, for example, I'm trying to grow legumes here. It's very expensive to grow them here, whereas India is the place to grow such crops.
Mm.
So at the moment, what's happening is I'm exploring having a lab in India and also have lab here, and basically kind of use the multiple seasons,
Mhm.
create pre-products there, and bring it to Europe or UK and do a trial. And this is how to speed up
Mm.
the breeding process, basically.
Mm. Fascinating. And there might be a few people watching this who are thinking about a startup journey or just beginning the startup journey on their own, with their own ideas. What advice would you give to somebody who was starting up a company in the UK right now?
Well, I think the advice I will give is, I think if you want to make a company, just do it. It
Mhm.
looks scary in the beginning, but doors will open. Cambridge and UK ecosystem is at the moment, very, very supportive of new startups, innovation,
Yeah.
and especially after Brexit, there's a huge push for having innovative companies, and UK is the place to
Mhm.
to have a lot of innovative activities. So there's a lot of support from the government, Innovate UK grants, Innovate UK Edge RTO grants, which we have got. We have got an advisor from Innovate UK who is guiding us, and advising us on, mentoring us and giving business advice and so on. So this
Right.
is the time to do it.
Mm. Mm. So just do it. I mean, that's
Yeah, let's do it, I think.
it's scary, but there's a lot of help around. That's a good piece of advice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So let's think about Viridian. In the next 5 years, where are you looking to take the company in the next 5 years?
So, our vision is to transform the one is food system and agriculture system. So, So there are regulations already being enacted. So for example, in Europe, there is this EU Green Deal, which is, Europe wants to become the first continent to become green by 2050.
Mhm.
So, and there's also laws like Dutch strategy. There's also Danish government, trying to push for to make agriculture greener. And one of the things they're advocating is consume double the amount of legumes, plus
Right.
produce legumes locally by 2030. They want 10,000 hectares of legumes to be grown locally, and
Mm.
we do not have enough varieties. So we believe that we can help in this, where our varieties can adapt here, grow here. And we have spoken to the industrial partners locally in UK, and they have done trials of chickpea, lentil, and they think that because of the hot summers, some of these legumes can really grow here very well. And
Mm.
so our vision is really to, in the next 5 years, try to become one of the best, a legume company, and creating varieties for not only just UK and Europe, but also a global company supplying legume seeds, which are helping make planet greener.
Mm. That's a great vision. I mean, to encapsulate it like that in terms of the impact on the planet is impressive stuff. What does it mean for Manash? How does
Mhm.
Manash have to change in the next 5 years as his company grows and his ideas grow? What does it mean for you personally?
So, I come from India, and originally I came here as a student, studied here and all that, and settled here. And but I have worked for the last 14 years. I traveled to India and all that. I've really seen a lot of um, farmers, suffering, especially in developing countries. And my mission is to really take the cutting edge technologies from here and help developing countries, especially India, to apply these technologies. The population will be very huge in India, and really India needs some sort of technology support or innovation. And I think that perhaps I can contribute to some extent to make improve the lives of farmers, and so that we avoid these nutritional and food security issues in the future going forward.
Yeah, that's again a great personal vision for you as well as the vision for the company as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't travel through time, but I want you to just imagine that you're going to go back and spend 5 minutes with the younger Manash. What advice would you give that young man as he sets off on his business journey that might be helpful to others?
Uh, I think I will say start early. Um, you know, um,
It's tough, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
tough question.
I mean,
Yeah,
just do it might be the good advice that
yeah.
you
I believe in
would
mantra
go.
that
But what else?
one life, one chance. So really, if you want to, if you have a dream, and pursue it as soon as you can.
Mm,
For me, it took me a long time to find out what exactly I want to do. And then finally, at the age of 40, I realized that this is what I want to do. And so it took me a while, but I think that I wish I had this vision earlier,
mm.
when I was much younger, and then, done it a bit earlier than a later stage in my life.
Mm, mm. But still, making a big impact now, and the potential, as you go through your business journey from now on, to make a massive impact on a lot of people in a lot of places. I mean, it's a great vision that you've got for sure.
Uh, yeah,
Mm,
thank you very much, and really hope I'm able to contribute, to some extent,
mm, mm.
to this making saving the planet. That's what we are calling it.
Yeah, yeah. You can't get bigger than that. You can't. So let's just wrap it up with a quick sort of question around what's coming up for Viridian. What do you want the viewers to know? Is there something that you would like them to understand, events or anything else that's coming up? What would you like to share with the viewers before we finish up?
So, so I think I will um, recommend viewers that climate change is a real problem which is happening.
Mhm.
So every one of us have to play a role to really help save the planet. And one of the ways to really help the planet is to change your diet, to have more of plant-based products.
Mhm.
And so there are already some products. UK is leading So there are already some products, plant-based products in the market. UK is leading in this, journey, and I think what our vision is that we'll try to make more healthier and tastier plant-based products available going forward. Every time you use a plant-based product, you are actually consuming less of meat. You are saving land. That land can be reforested. Eating legumes is actually helping soil improvement.
Mm-hmm.
So just by changing your diet, if you have less of meat going forward, I think it will have a huge impact on the planet.
Mm.
So every little helps. I like that mantra of Tesco.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I think that's what we have to do. Everyone has to help a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. It's great advice, Manash. Great advice, and I really appreciate an insight into what you're doing with Viridian. I mean, I think as we said, the vision is massive. It's going to have a global impact as time goes on. So I appreciate the time you've spent with us today.
Yeah. So one last, just to tell you, which I think I'm not answering your question, is so we are working on chickpeas. So we are working on chickpea improvement so that chickpeas can be grown here.
Mm-hmm.
We are working on lentil improvement, so in collaboration with NIAB. And we're also working on some other legumes. So 5 different legumes. We are starting this project.
Mm-hmm.
And we're tying up with the various partners in this pipeline in the chain so that we can bring these products to UK consumers as quickly as possible.
Fantastic. Talk for hours, honestly, with what you've been revealing there. But Manash, thank you very much indeed for taking part today on the Business Spotlight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.